up mga ka-Einstein? Another day, another opportunity to learn. For this day, we are going to put focus on potential and kinetic energy. This is a very interesting topic, especially that na-experience nyo to sa araw-araw nyong ginagawa. So, are you ready? You're still with me, Sir Janus, saying, let's learn and have fun. Quick reminders muna tayo bago tayo magsimula. You can pause the video anytime, especially to soak up the concepts. Pwede mo rin siyang i-pause, lalong-lalo na pag nag-a-answer ka ng mga assessments or quizzes. You can also use separate papers for your answers, or pwede mong i-download yung mga modules provided na nasa video description. And most important of all, huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe para updated ka sa next educational videos that I'll be posting in the future. Let's start the topic by soaking up concepts on energy. Ano ba yung kanyang mga types? Ano ba yung kanyang forms? And ano ba yung kanyang definition? So what is energy? Meron ka bang idea kung ano yung kanyang definition? Yung energy or enerhiya is defined as a capacity to do work, or sa madaling sabi, ito yung kakayahan para makagawa ng trabaho. So mapapansin mo, kung marami kang enerhiya sa katawan, then that leads to marami ka ring magagawang mga trabaho. So you might wonder, how do we utilize energy? As you have observed, mas pinapadali ng enerhiya yung mga buhay natin. Pinapagalaw niya yung ating mga sasakyan. It enables us to cook our food, keeps ice frozen. Pwede rin niyang i-play yung mga paborito nating music at saka yung mga lights sa home. And of course, it is responsible for the growth and development of our body. Aside sa energy, ito yung mga specific topic that we are going to take up as we go on with our discussion. So what are those? Yung una, we are going to take up forms of energy. Kalawa, yung definition ng potential at saka ng kinetic energy. Pangatlo, yung potential and kinetic energy problems. We have also, and for the last, we are also going to discover how speed and position of object affect the amount of energy. We already know that energy is the capacity to do work. Aside from that, energy is what makes matter move or change. Meron dalawang major types ng energy. First one is the kinetic energy and the other is the potential energy. Under the kinetic energy, it is defined as the energy that comes from movement or paggalaw. Whereas yung potential energy naman, it is simply defined as an energy that is stored for later use, or enerhiya na naka-reserve or nakatago. Under sa kinetic energy, we have the mechanical energy, electrical, thermal, radiant. You have also the sound energy. Under naman sa potential energy, we have the chemical energy, the nuclear energy, gravitational energy, and the last would be elastic energy. So we are going to discuss all of those as we go on with our discussion. Now let's take up the different types of kinetic energy. Ano nga uli yung kinetic energy? Naalala nyo pa ba? Yes, it is an energy from movement. The first type of kinetic energy is known as electrical energy. This type of energy is the energy of moving electrons. Its energy is transferred as electrons move back and forth within the wires. Next type under the kinetic energy is what you call as light or radiant, or the electromagnetic spectrum. So what are this electromagnetic spectrum or EM spectrum? So these are light energy, which is a form of kinetic energy. This is produced by the vibrations of electric charge particles. Another type under kinetic energy is known as heat or thermal energy. So ano nga ba yung heat or thermal energy? It is the total kinetic energy of particles that make up an object. So para mas madaling tandaan, mas maraming kinetic energy an object has, mas maraming thermal energy. Ayan. So here's a comparison between those with more thermal energy at saka yung less thermal energy. As you could clearly see, mas maraming kinetic energy, mas marami siyang thermal energy. Mas maliit na kinetic energy, mas konti rin yung kanyang thermal energy. Next one is yung enerhiya na nanggagaling sa tunog or yung sound energy. So paano ba nangyayari yung sound energy? Ito ay caused ng object's vibrations. So the motion of energy through particles in mechanical or longitudinal waves. Yung last type ng kinetic energy is tinatawag na mechanical energy. So ano nga ba yung mechanical? So pag pinagsama mo yung potential at saka yung kinetic energy, then that results to mechanical energy. So, mechanical energy is defined as yung enerhiya ng isang object dahil sa kanyang paggalaw or sa kanyang position. This time, let's proceed to potential energy. Naalala nyo pa ba kung ano yung definition ng potential energy? Anyone? Yes, when we talk about potential energy, it is energy that is stored. The first example for potential energy is what you call as chemical energy. Ano nga ba yung mga halimbawa ng chemical energy? One good example is the food that we eat. Remember that when talk about chemical energy, kailangan muna itong mag-undergo ng chemical reaction, such as yung food. We could not take its nutrients dun sa mga pagkain not unless we consume it para makuha natin yung sustansya na nanggaling doon sa mga pagkain through chemical reactions. Another good example for chemical energy is yung energy coming from the batteries, coming from the fuels, and others. Next example is the nuclear energy. Ano nga ba yung enerhiya na nanggagaling sa nuclear? So these are energy that deals with the changes in the nucleus of an atom. Merong dalawang paraan para makuha yung energy galing sa atoms. Yung una, when atoms join together or in short fusion, and the other one, when atoms split apart or through fission method. Next example would be gravitational potential energy. So from the word itself, it deals with gravity. So ito yung amount ng energy an object has because of its position above the ground. So mas mataas yung kanyang height, mas mataas din yung value ng kanyang gravitational potential energy. Another type of potential energy is what you call as elastic potential energy. So as you could clearly see from the example, it is energy stored when an object is stretched or compressed. So during archery, as you can see, habang hinihila yung string, nag-generate siya ngayon ng elastic potential energy. And yung compressed naman ay pinapakita or binibigyan ng halimbawa ng mga springs. Ayan. You might be wondering, ano ba yung pagkakaiba ng kinetic sa potential energy? Or paano mo ba malalaman na yung enerhiya are kinetic or potential energy? Ganito lang yon. Ganito lang kasimple at kadali. Una, titingnan mo yung energy na gumagalaw. If it moves or meron bang motion, then definitely it is an example of a kinetic energy. The rest are examples of potential energy. Ganun lang kasimple at ganun lang kadali. This time, we are going to practice on our problem-solving skills involving kinetic, and potential energy. So, ready na ba yung mga calculators ninyo dyan? Here are important concepts when dealing or solving problems involving kinetic energy. You should remember na yung amount ng kinetic energy ay nakadepende sa dalawang bagay, yung kanyang mass at saka yung kanyang velocity. Yung kinetic energy or Ki is the energy of an object due to its speed or in motion. So paano ba pag-solve ng problems involving kinetic energy? So ito yung formula. Kinetic energy equals to 1/2 times mass times velocity squared, or in short, 1/2 m times v squared. Ito yung dapat tandaan. Yung mass, kailangang nag-express siya sa kilogram. Yung velocity naman, nasa meters per second. At saka yung kanyang result na value should be in joules. Before we proceed, importanteng wag nating kalimutan yung order of operations. So naalala nyo pa yung PEMDAS? Yung PEMDAS, yung P represents parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. So ito yung dapat sundan, yung order of operations when doing calculations. So for kinetic energy, kailangan mo munang isolve yung sa exponents before ka mag-multiply. So here is a quick problem for 60 seconds. What is the kinetic energy of a 10 kg cannonball traveling at 50 meters per second? So given na yung kanyang mass, which is 10 kilograms, yung velocity naman niya is nasa 50 meters per second. So you can use the formula Ki, 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. So you still have 30 seconds left. So take note that the desired unit for this one is dapat naka-express siya sa joules. Yung mass, kilogram, yung sa velocity naman is nasa meters per second. So 5 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. So were you able to answer? So para sa mga nahirapan, do not worry kasi andito yung step-by-step guide in order for you to come up with the correct answer or correct value ng kinetic energy. Of course, you are going to substitute the value. Yung 1/2 para mas madali, gawin mo na lang siyang 0.5. Then, substitute yung value ng sa mass which is 10 kg. Tapos, yung sa kanyang velocity which is 50 meters per second. Now, take note. Yung sa PEMDAS, kailangan muna nating kunin yung value ng sa exponent. So, what is the square of 50? So, the answer is 2,500 meters per second and second squared. So, that's the time that you can now multiply. So from here, 0.5 times 10 kg, that is the second step. The result would be, of course, 5 kg. And then you are just going to simply multiply 5 by 2,500 and yung magiging result niyan is 12,500 kg meters per second second squared, or itong value na to is equivalent to. Let's have another sample problem. And I'm pretty confident that you will be able to solve this all by yourself. A car with a mass of 1,500 kg travels at a velocity of 20 meters per second. So you are going to compute for its kinetic energy. Given the mass, 1,500 kilograms, velocity, it is traveling at 20 meters per second. So for the formula, Ki is equals to 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. So you still have 20 seconds left. So 15 seconds more. 10 seconds. 5 seconds, and time is up. So here is the solution to the problem. So instead of using 1/2, just substitute 0.5. Then you have the value for mass, which is 1,500 kilogram. You have also the value for velocity, which is 20 meters per second squared. And of course, the first step, you are going to determine the value for the velocity first because of the PEMDAS. So 20 times 20 is, the answer would be 400 meters per second squared. Then after getting the value for velocity, then you are going to multiply yung 1/2 by the mass. So 0.5 times 1,500, the result would be 750 kilograms. Then you are now going to multiply it with the value of velocity. So the result would be 300,000 kilogram meters per second squared, or it can be expressed as 300,000 joules. Did you get it correct? Congratulations! Now that you know how to solve problems involving kinetic energy, then let us proceed right away on how to solve problems involving potential energy. Now, if kinetic energy depends on its mass and of course its velocity, gravitational potential energy depends on its mass and its height, or above the Earth's surface. So here is a clear example. When a bungee jumper starts to fall, he starts to lose the gravitational potential energy. But as the elastic cord pulls the bungee jumper back up, he gains the gravitational potential energy, and at the same time loses the kinetic energy. Here are the important concepts that you should always remember when dealing with problems involving potential energy. If kinetic energy has its key is equals to 1/2 times mass times velocity squared, the formula for potential energy is that mass times gravity times height, or PE grav is equals to mass, or M times G times H. You should always remember that all things on Earth are subjected to the same type of velocity due to gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared. Its height is measured in meters, and the end unit should be expressed in joules. We have here a sample problem for potential energy. Can you calculate the potential energy for a 0.5 kilogram basketball dropping from a height of 3.5 meters? If the kinetic energy has its 1/2 times mass times velocity squared, we are going to use the formula for potential energy, which is P is equals to mass times gravity times height. So mass, its value is 0.5 kilogram. Gravity, which is constant at 9.8 meters per second. And the height, which is 3.5 meter. Okay, so you still have 15 seconds left. So all you have to do is just multiply all those values to come up with the potential energy. 5 seconds left. And time is up. Here's the solution to the problem. Actually, it's quite easy if you are going to compare it with the solutions involving kinetic energy. Because for potential energy, all you have to do is just multiply all the values needed. So we have mass, which is at 0.5 kilogram. You are going to multiply it with gravity or velocity due to gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second. Then by its height, which is 3.5 meter. So by multiplying all this one, you can get the value of 17.15 kilogram meters per second squared, or it can be expressed into joules. Here is another example for you to challenge yourself. An eagle with a mass of 2 kg flies at a height of 200 meter above the ground. So, kailangan mong isolve yung gravitational potential energy ng eagle. So given na yung value ng mass, which is 2 kg, constant yung sa gravity, 9.8 meters per second, at saka yung height naman is nasa 200 meter. I am pretty confident na makukuha nyo yung tamang sagot kasi mas madali lang to kasi all you have to do is multiply all the values. You are going to use the formula PE is equals to mass times gravity times height. Yun lang. So 10 seconds left. Okay, 5 seconds. Time is up. So here is the correct answer. So PE is equals to 2 kg times 9.8 times 200 meter. The result would be 3,920 kilograms meters per second, second squared or joules. Ganun lang. Who got it correct? Congratulations. This time, we are going to discover how speed and position of object affects the amount of energy. Can you still remember the factors affecting kinetic energy? Remember, for kinetic energy, there are two factors that affects it. One is its mass and the other is its velocity. On the other hand, for potential energy, you have its mass and of course its height. Here is a comparison between kinetic and potential energy using a pendulum. Based on the example, as you clearly see, that at its highest point, it has its maximum potential energy, whereas it has a zero kinetic energy. On the middle, as you could see, that it has the maximum kinetic energy, but zero potential energy. One thing that you should remember is that when potential energy increases, kinetic energy decreases, and vice versa. Tingnan naman natin yung difference between kinetic and potential energy using a bouncing ball. So, mapapansin ninyo that at its highest point, andun yung maximum potential energy whereas almost zero kinetic energy. But at its lowest point naman, andun yung maximum kinetic energy and almost zero potential energy. Using a falling object. As you can see, due to its height, which is at the top of the building, you could see that it has a high potential energy due to gravity or gravitational potential energy. So let's see what happens once it begins falling. As you can clearly see, as its height decreases, its potential energy also decreases, and as it travels downwards, it gains kinetic energy. For the last example, we are going to look at the different energy transformation from kinetic to mechanical to thermal, gravitational, elastic potential using a bouncing ball. So from kinetic, because it's falling, and once it reaches the ground, it gains elastic potential because it makes up of rubber, and as it moves upward, it gains gravitational potential energy, and as it moves down again, it gains another kinetic energy. So that is how energy is transformed from one form to another. That's the end of our topic. Congratulations. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop your comments below. Or if you have topics that we want to cover, please make sure to put it on the comment section. And please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so you would be updated for our latest or more educational videos.